All right, I'm gonna assume that means it's 7 o'clock. Yeah,
Correct.
okay, all right. So we'll call this meeting to order and we will start with a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
you would call the roll.
Mike Brown,
Here.
Michael London,
Here.
Sherry Simon,
Here.
David Steck,
Here.
and Brad Warble.
Here. All right, this evening, we have case number BZA 2021-004. This case is an appeal. But getting this correct. Getting it, yeah. This is regarding an address at 77 North Diamond Mill Road, New Lebanon, Ohio 45345. Property is located on the west side of North Diamond Mill Road and the north of the intersection of Eden Pike. The parcel number is L 5302912001 and it is 1 acre. Property is zoned R1. This case is an appeal for requesting a variance to overturn a citation for a violation. So I want to start this evening with the zoning administrator. So before I go to our guests this evening, so if you'll give us a summary of what we're looking at here.
Okay. On October 20th, it was reported to me that there was a barn going up on Diamond Mill Road. I checked the records here and found no permit or applications for a permit. November the 6th, 2020, I sent out a certified letter to Mr. Gode's attention because I was told he was the owner. I found out later that he was not.
This is, you're referring to, it says here Clinton.
Clinton Gode, Mr. Gode, yes.
Okay.
November 17th, 2020, I received a call from Mr. Gode and he said he received the certified letter and asked me what he needed to do to make things right. I explained that he would need to fill out the application for the barn and explain the steps. I also told him that he may have to go before the Board of Zoning Appeals for a variance. Mr. Gode told me he had COVID and could not come in and pick up the application. So I told him I would mail him an application and the instruction sheet. November 18th, 2020, I mailed to Mr. Gode the application and the instruction sheet. January 15th, 2021, I mailed Mr. Gode a second certified letter regarding the barn and the application because I had not heard anything from him. The post office tried to, on 3 occasions, to deliver the certified letter and it was returned to me on February 8th, 2021. February 3rd, 2021, I sent a third certified letter to Mr. Gode, and once again, the post office tried 3 times to deliver the letter and it was returned to me February 24th, 2021. Trustee Mears and I went to the Montgomery County building regulations and met with Paul Barnett, the inspector supervisor. And he said that they would investigate the property and would issue a violation if warranted. That was on February 23rd of 2021. March 1st, 2021, I received a call from Paul Barnett and he stated that Mr. Gode did not own the property and that Pamela Fosnoff was the owner. Paul did issue a violation March 3rd, 2021.
This is Paul Barnett.
He is the chief inspector for Montgomery County.
That's who you're referring to. Okay.
March 9th, 2021, I received a call from Dawn Fosnar, and she said she'd found the unopened mail at her mom's, and that's how she found out that the barn was being built without a permit. We discussed the letter, and I explained that they would have to go before the Board of Zoning Appeals. Dawn said she was going to call Mr. Goad regarding this. March 16, 2021, Mr. Goad came into the office with his application for the barn and asked me to give him a permit. I explained to him I could not give him a permit because he already had the building put up and it did not meet our zoning code. He said, and he was in a floodplain. He said he was not in a floodplain. I went on with my explanation that Mr. Barnett from Montgomery County said that he was indeed in a floodplain, and Mr. Goad left the office. March 18th, I sent our attorney, Mr. Peterson, an email asking direction on this case. I sent him a copy of the log that I had kept on the case with a copy of the Montgomery County violation. Nathaniel Peterson called me and said I needed to send Mr. Goad a letter of violation, and he said he could be charged with a criminal misdemeanor. I sent the violation on March 31st, 2021, and a copy to Pamela Fosnock and her daughter, Dawn Fosnock. April the 6th, I spoke with Michael London regarding this case, and he felt it was a legal matter because Mr. Goad was waiting on or wanting to come before the BZA after the fact. April the 8th, Mr. Goad came into the office with the BZA hearing application and fee to come before the board. I asked Mr. Goad to hold onto the application and the fee until I spoke with our attorneys to see what our next step would be, and I would get back with him. April 13th, 2021, I sent Nathaniel another email regarding the BZA hearing for Mr. Goad. May 26, 2021, Nathaniel and Anu called me and they said that he has to come before the BZA. Number one, the BZA board can uphold the violation, or number two, the BZA board can come up with a separate solution. May 27th, I called Mr. Goad and asked him to bring in the BZA hearing application and the fee so I could get the hearing set up. June 2nd, I called Anu and asked her who should I be communicating with regarding the barn, because Mr. Goad is not the owner. Don Fosnar is the POA for Pamela, her mother, and Anu said to speak with Dawn. June 2nd, I called Dawn and asked her to send me a copy of the POA papers and a copy of the land contract they had with Mr. Goad. I told Dawn I spoke with Mr. Goad on May 27, 2021, and asked him to bring in the application and fee. He still had not brought them into me. Dawn said that she would pay the fee and fill out the paperwork if she needed to. June 16th, I called Dawn and told her that it had been about 3 weeks since I last spoke with Mr. Goad, and he still had not brought in the paperwork or a fee. Dawn said she was going to give him a call. Later that day, Mr. Goad came into the office and brought in the paperwork and the fee for the hearing. I wrote him a receipt for the fee. And after receiving the paperwork and the fee, I went through the steps of setting up the BZA hearing meeting for tonight.
Anything else beyond this?
No.
Okay. So this evening's appeal is an appeal as a result of a violation, a citation. So the decision that this board is going to be working on this evening is to make a decision about whether or not that citation, that violation was rightful or was in the wrong. And that's what this appeal is, to overturn that violation. So I'd like to, I'd like to see if there's anyone that's here attending who wants to speak in favor of this appeal. And again, just to clarify, because it can get confusing, this appeal is an appeal to overturn the citation. Is there anyone who wants to speak in favor of this appeal? If so, yes? All right, anyone else? If you would, please stand. Anyone who wants to, yes?
Yes.
Yes, just please stand. If you would, I'm gonna swear everybody in at the same time. Okay, if you would, state your name, please.
Dawn Fosnell.
Thank you, Don.
Adam Byers-Worker.
Adam. Clinton.
Terry McCall.
If you would, do you sincerely declare and affirm that the testimony you are about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer under penalty of perjury? If so, answer I do.
I do.
Got it. Thank you. You're first.
I would like to.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. This is for everybody. I do want you to try and speak loud enough so it's captured with the recorder, okay?
Because I'm representing the owner, my mother and so forth, and then we came in late on this. You know, I agree that he did a violation and so forth, but my inner understanding of zoning is to make sure that it doesn't affect other properties in the area and their value and so forth, and that whatever is done is safe. And so to just say that there's a violation and not have any discussion on usage or whether this is even applicable or so forth, all it's going to do is punish my mom in terms of, you know, having to take him to court and whatever. And I'm hoping that we at least do this appeal so that we can have, it doesn't mean that we're agreeing, but just give it an appeal so that we can have a discussion on whether the rest of it is appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the other things that I should have said for everybody is that their primary job is to make a decision as to whether or not to uphold this appeal or to not uphold this appeal with violation. In addition to that, this board, because it is a semi-judicial body, has the authority to take into consideration other factors in terms of mitigation. So we can make a decision, and we can also take into other considerations and you alluded to some of these other considerations, what mitigating circumstances we make decisions on. So that's also part of the picture. Who else would like to speak in favor of this appeal? Yes.
Terry.
Terry, go
I
ahead.
don't know what I was gonna
I'm
say.
sorry, can you step up to the podium, please?
Yes,
The
yes.
mic will pick it up better.
I don't even know what I was gonna say, but reason I'm here, good people, good neighbors. Don't consider an eyesore, live directly across the street. Not running a junkyard or nothing like that, all hours of the night, nothing like that. It's a nice man cave. You guys can understand that. As far as permits and things, I understand that. But like I say, really.
Okay.
He's a police officer, 3 little kids, good people.
You're a neighbor? You're a neighbor?
Right across the street.
Yeah, and you see there's no problem in terms of any negative
The
impact
only
on
thing I
you.
don't like about it's not in my backyard.
Well, all right, that's a different story. Somebody else?
Hello, again, my name is Adam Byers-Worker. I'm an attorney with Pickerel, Schaefer, and Edling out of Dayton. Clinton came to me here just recently, I think last week, to tell me about this problem that he has. A couple thoughts therefore in regards to this. First off, I'd just like to go ahead and acknowledge that my client is not as sophisticated as some of the individuals on this board when it comes to what you should do or should not do in regards to planning and zoning procedures, or perhaps what some of the substance of what those planning and zoning aspects are as well. Having said that, Again, I acknowledge that he did not obtain the permits prior to building his detached garage. I admit that, or I acknowledge as well that he did not successfully obtain those permits or the variance approvals after it either. But if there's anything that I can point out and into the record there that was read in earlier, was that there were several attempts that were made by Clinton to try and rectify the issue at that time. They were unsuccessful. Again, I defer to my prior statement about him not being sophisticated in regards to procedures and parts that were necessary. Part of this was out of his control in regards to the initial time in processes with getting COVID and experiencing the overcoming of that. And part of that was just simply with his inability to successfully complete it. If anything that I can see so far, it's that he has full intentions to want to get this resolved and resolved efficiently. And essentially to do that, he just simply needs to file for the permits and pay the fees associated with them, file for the variance request for that area use, and again, argue his rights to have it approved. Again, I think in this regard, Clinton is willing to do that. He's willing to pay whatever is necessary for it to happen. He's willing to file the permits in order for that to be sure. He hired and retained attorneys and a firm that's willing to make sure that he follows the steps that are necessary and that Perry Township receives what they need and receives all the supplemental things they need to make their decisions. And it would be my request that we would stay this particular hearing if it's regards to upholding the actual violation for 30 days to allow him the opportunity to do just that, to go ahead and put in the applications for the permits for the variance and pay all necessary fees. I'll wait then obviously for rebuttal. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Just a question for clarification, Adam. You're aware that there would then probably, based upon what I've read here, that there would be a requirement for more than one variance. There isn't just one.
There would at least be a requirement for a variance in regards to the area because the detached garage is obviously ineffectually not in an appropriate location in regards to the code itself, yes. The secondary variance that you're referring to would be.
I'm just saying, based upon what I've read here, there's a couple of different things, and I won't go into which, we'll see, but there could be more than one here.
Sure. Again, my client has made it abundantly clear that he wants to try and come to the place to resolve this. He, again, came multiple times with incorrect paperwork or right paperwork at wrong money or wrong times. He is willing to go through the steps to rectify it. If that requires multiple variances to do so, then that's the steps he's going to perform, yes.
Okay. Who else? He's talking for me? Okay. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Clint? No? Anybody else here? Was there anyone else who wanted to speak in favor of granting this appeal? If not, then I'll ask if there's anybody here who wants to speak against granting this appeal. Not hearing anybody. In that case, then I'm going to entertain a motion to close the open portion of the meeting. We may, however, have questions at some point for any number of you during this portion. The motion to that effect. Brown, is there a second? Mr. Steck, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, so you've all had a chance to take a look at this. I think the first thing that, again, I want to clarify is that we have, and it's not the only thing, this is a good point, by the way. But this is an appeal to overturn the actual citation, the violation. That's the first thing, and we have to make a decision, was that right or wrong in terms of that appeal. We also have the ability to make any other conditions and mitigations. There's been some suggested, just as we have in other cases. The one thing I would remind you, and I do this every meeting, I know, so you're probably tired of it by now, But that is to remind you that whatever action we do take, we do need to consider whatever precedent it may set for the future.
Correct.
So, Sherry, do you have any thoughts
Well,
or questions?
I don't have any questions. The main thoughts that I have is that Mr. Goat is not currently the owner of that property. That's been my thought throughout the whole process, is that he is not the owner of that property. And, it's unfortunate because the true owner of the property is in a nursing home. And, so it is a kind of a different situation. One of the things I read in the land contract is that he, as the purchaser of this property, was to give notice to the owner of the property, written notice before there be any modification to the property. And I don't know if that happened.
Is that a question you have?
I guess it is, if there was a written letter to you stating his intention to even build this barn.
Oh, okay.
So I think there's a lot of there's just a lot of things that weren't followed properly, and I don't think that that there's not a solution to it. I think there is a solution to it. But it does lie in that precedent setting thing. We cannot have people who don't own properties, first of all, going out and deciding that maybe they want to put a swimming pool in the front yard. Well, I'm just gonna do it because it's hot out. And some things like that, that then evolve into, and this one has evolved. I mean, this is, if you look, snowball, this thing has snowballed immensely, and it could have been very easily rectified from the first phone call. And granted, everything, I know everything has the COVID excuse to it, and fortunately you recovered, and I mean, obviously that's a blessing right there, but we can't blame everything on that, and we have to not be setting precedents for things to happen like this. I mean, I think all of us that live in the township, we like this township because we have zoning, and we have a nice orderly township mostly, because of it. So I would really not like to see any of that be undermined.
One of the things that I would remind everybody is that there are two violations, and we're only talking about here this evening. We're only talking about the zoning violation. We're not talking about the county violations. We don't have any authority over that. Mr. Stack, do you have any thoughts you want to share?
Well,
Or questions for anybody?
I guess my quandary is that it was not understood a permit should be obtained before building. Just,
Is there a builder involved? I mean, if there's a builder involved, there's onus on the builder for not seeking that part of it also. I'm not relieving it all on that, but there's that factor also.
a question for you, sir. Did you build the building or did you have it built?
I had a book.
Okay,
Do you know the name of the builder?
I don't know if there's, are they some, not quite so big ones. Dayton all steel buildings.
Dayton All Field, was that what you said? Okay. Thank you. Go ahead. Lorenzo.
then there's another quandary about the floodplain. Is that a problem? Building on a floodplain in terms
The
of,
zoning code.
what is the concern about building on a floodplain? I really don't know.
Okay,
I
can you enlighten us?
Well, I didn't bring in my,
You didn't bring in the
I didn't
code
bring
with you?
this up this time. It was brought to my attention on the floodplain by Montgomery County.
Right.
Because they're the ones that told me and Missy that, that he was in a floodplain.
On the overhead overlays and that, when we look at it together, there's an overlay of the area and it falls in that area. So for any true decision to be made, I'd have to have a surveyor go out there and actually survey this information so we can look at a plot plan that we know what we're actually talking about. Because right now, we're just talking off of a piece of graph paper.
Right.
And that's not something that we generally work off of.
Absolutely. The
How old is the house? Does anybody know?
1900.
1900 was the house.
Okay.
It was built there. I have a FEMA in the floodplain that also shows it. I don't know if it's gonna be a whole lot more restrictive than what you're talking about. You're free to look at it.
I'm talking about the actual overlay that the county has on their website.
But yes, the house was built in 1900, and that detached garage was built essentially right there next to where the actual house is located as well. It's not in front of it, it's not behind it, it's basically right there.
It's actually on a swimming pool, correct?
As a condition of his home ownership insurance policy, he was required to fill in the swimming pool. So he filled in the swimming pool so he could have his insurance policy for the homeowner's aspect.
And it was built on top of that.
And then it was built directly on top of that existing structure that was there before. Which again was a derelict swimming pool, which was unsightly and I imagine using some of the people in the community as well. And there was even an existing mortar wall that was in front of that swimming pool between it and the road too. So by all accounts, if you're talking about structures, you removed a wall structure and moved the actual surface back to that detached garage first. Again, directly over where the pool used to be.
Do you know if just getting to David's question here, do you know what the county's inclination is in terms of issuing building permits for a floodplain?
Did you get the impression that they don't for if they're in a floodplain? No, that's what. And I think even on the violation here
Right.
on the county, it's checked flood damage prevention construction permit.
Which would be another permit. Right.
And I can,
Go ahead.
there is, going back to the days of Linden in my profession, what you will run into a lot of times with flood plains and flood in general is the property itself may have some flooding, a part of a floodplain in it or something like that, but where the residence is actually built, that is not. Well, then you have to go through a lot of like documentation and because, oh, well, this whole property is our lot, but really the only floodplain you have is right here. So as soon as there's floodplain, it's like it's floodplain. I mean, that's always been my experience with it, in the lending aspect of it. But you can do additional surveying
Right.
and things to say, no, granted, I know this part or back in here it is, but where I'm putting my residence, it's not, this is the elevation, this is the justification.
And without a specific survey, we don't have the answer to that question. And we also really don't have an answer to the question in terms of, until that survey was done, as to whether the county itself would have even issued a permit based upon that survey. I'm sorry, you had something.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say, the owner really wasn't contacted until February when the letter was sent. So
You mean the owner wasn't contacted by,
by you
Anybody.
guys or anything. So you're talking about going back to November and so forth. And we didn't, my mom and I didn't know that the thing was, all this was going on until February. I called up Montgomery County
Mhm.
zoning and so forth, because I wanted to see what the process would be and whatever. And he said it would have to be surveyed.
Right.
After it was surveyed and you realize that it wasn't in a floodplain,
Right.
then you would, only thing that Montgomery County would be concerned about is whether the fill was strong enough and whether it was anchored well enough. But he said that all the things in terms of placement and variance with how far back from the street and all that kind of stuff is a local.
That's a township zone.
That's
Right.
Right.
So I just want to make that clear.
Yes,
Right.
that's the part we do. We don't get into saying it's in a floodplain or not. That would.
No, and that, even if it were, if there was a variance given to that, it wouldn't be by us. It would be the county
Right.
in terms of the permit. And that's where I'm suggesting there may be other issues here
Right.
that may require some other mitigation other than just one. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I got another one.
Go right ahead.
The building is almost even to the front, which is not something that we more generally lets happen. There are variances for that, but that's not usually the way it is. It needs to be in the back of the house. And I guess my question is there room in the back of the house for this building?
So that's an excellent question. And I think that's really where this unique plot kind of lies into it. Most of the plots in the area, especially the ones that are right across the street, have the narrow section of the plot abutting North Diamond Mill Road with sufficient space behind the accessory buildings. This particular plot is actually rotated 90 degrees where the depth what you have across the street is now what's running next to North Diamond Mill Road. So essentially you have the narrowest part of that plot being the area that you're supposed to be required to stay behind the village garage there. But it's more complicated than that too. If you compare it to the plot immediately adjacent to it, it also, to the point that's been discussed, has that natural waterway that runs across the back through part of the property and in through the property in the other. So what narrow space what was already there is now reduced even more so. There's additional aspects for that though too. There's also a septic leach field that's in that particular area too, which again would have to be moved and removed and changed to different areas there if that had been pushed back further. And last but not least there's also mature trees that are in that area. Those trees, however we see them above ground, also are extremely crucial for beneath the ground on that waterway for erosion control. If those were to be cut down and removed, you're talking about having potentially more land being taken away by the floodplains and additional costs that Clinton would have to bear there to try and create erosion protection in their place. So the lot itself, to answer your question, doesn't have satisfactory space to put it behind the building itself. Yes, it is very close to the front of the building. It's still technically roughly approximately 6 inches behind where the front is, but it isn't all the way behind the building as the code would say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Brian?
I agree with all of your thoughts. My theory is, my thoughts are, it's been 357 days since this all started. And it's been drug on for a very long time. And I know what these mean when they come to my house. And
We are referring
to the registered letter. If a registered letter comes to my house, I'm going to accept the letter no matter what. I feel like we've been strung along a while for this whole situation. There's a lot of areas that need to be looked at. What's underneath it, I'm very concerned with what's underneath it. I mean, putting fill into a existing swimming pool doesn't sound like anything that a builder would be wanting to even consider putting a structure on. So I think that needs to be reviewed by someone to give us an honest answer whether that's a viable construction for that facility or not. If you can literally fill in a swimming pool, put a building on top of it, and it's a viable structure, especially that it's in a flood zone.
Well, depending upon the fill.
All right.
And that's
Right.
specifically what the county, I'm sure, was concerned.
So those
about.
are my concerns.
Okay.
Uh,
Go ahead.
Can I ask you what type of building is it? I know you told us at the company, there are some things that are almost portable buildings that don't actually, they're anchored. They're not necessarily like a post type. What type of building is this that you put up?
It sits on the slab and is anchored.
Right.
into the concrete.
So it's this, and it appears to me to be a metal. Is that correct? A metal, steel metal building.
So they just lag through like the.
And it wouldn't be unusual for it to be anchored, in fact, to a concrete slab.
So it's more like a storage building, in other words. It's more freestanding but anchored.
If I may, the area where the pool is, it wasn't just the pool, it was extensive concrete pads that cover that entire area around. So when we were talking about what was actually built on top of, it encompasses the pool area, but it's also encompassing that big concrete pad that's there as well.
So this.
Yes, again, the actual parts of the building that are fixed to the ground are fixed to the concrete itself, not the fill material inside where the pool was.
It looks like it. Right. That's what it looks like, yeah.
That's what it looks like. Still, my pictures exactly.
Mr. Warble, did you have any thoughts?
No, same concerns that were brought up, but I kind of wonder whether the contractor has some responsibility of building something without a permit. But
Yeah,
that's
this is
neither
a-
here nor there, I guess.
This is this is a mire in terms of responsibility.
Yeah.
And what I want us to try to stay clear on is what our responsibility is and what our responsibility isn't. I mean, normally we would be talking to the owner, because it's usually owners of property who come in and ask for these kinds of, have the appeals. It's usually not a tenant. That's usually handled with owners. So, I mean, there's a wide range of things. Yes,
If I may, the way in which Clinton has the property now is underneath the land contract itself, as he is purchasing the property from the current owners. I understand that per the records, it still shows that Pam is the owner of the property, but Clinton is by all accounts behaving, paying, purchasing, and treating the property as his own, because it is his full intention that this is his property. When he pays off the land contract, he is the forever owner of this property.
yeah, but from a legal point of view, I think we're also looking at the fact that there is a difference, in fact, between an agreement to purchase and in fact a mortgage.
Sure.
Otherwise, they might even be called the same thing, and they're not. And that has legal ramifications, and that's my point in terms of difference. That land contract is that agreement to purchase, but it isn't a statement of ownership. Future ownership, once complete, but it's not now, which puts that burden back upon the owner. And there's a couple of other things here that I want to at least bring to your attention that I'm noticing that I can't speak for the county on their violation specifically, but I do understand that under ours, this has the potential. This has the potential to be to have significant fines coming with it, based upon the way that I'm reading the law. And that is a place, I want to just bring it to the board's attention, that when a violation like this happens, if it's upheld, there is the possibility of very significant fines that can accumulate over a long period of time from the date of the incident itself. I'm bringing it up because that is a place that, whether you're aware of it or not, that is a place where we can offer some mitigation. And we should be aware of that. So that if this board were to deny the appeal in and of itself, in terms of appealing the violation, it does not mean that the board may not also very specifically vacate fines that are associated with this citation. We can't do anything about county citation, but that is a mitigation we could make. should you choose to do that. Make sense?
There's a part of me that I think would be good to explain how, I mean, I think we all know that there were lax responses to certified mail, to things like that, to the pandemic, to all that. We can all point fingers at a lot of that, but
The owner did not know. So you
until
cannot-
February, right?
So you can't put that on the owner.
Right, but so as of February, and all I was getting to is that there is a method to doing this properly. And that's my point, is to give you what that proper line would have been. And even at this, when some of this that I'm looking in front of me, it's like, we wouldn't accept this.
Oh,
If we were just coming tonight, everything, we cleared the chalkboard and we just said, okay, well, let's do this, then this isn't acceptable.
Well, I didn't.
You know,
turn
and I
it
know,
in.
you did not. Okay,
It's just she's trying to
I'm just
clarify. the
trying to
information.
clarify how this could have not come to this point. And now that there are not only, potential penalties here, it's whoever knows what the county is gonna do. So in a perfect world where Mr. Goode would have contacted you and said, hey, or your mom, whatever, you said, hey, I'm looking at putting up this building. Are you okay with this? Yes, I am. He's complied with this land contract then. Then you're gonna say, yeah, let's see what we have to do as far as getting the proper channels to have this happen. And then that's when you contact Karen, and Karen gives you the package. And we've sort of gotten through that finally to here. I mean, you've got the paperwork, you've got the requirements of that paperwork. Then you get together with Mr. Goode and, he said, this is what I want to do. This is what I got an idea to do. I'm going to fill in the swimming pool. I'd like to put a storage building up, make this property look better. But you know what? We've got a creek that runs behind here. There's floodplain, there's this issue, that issue. I don't know what's going on. So that's when you get the proper drawings. Now I'm going to look at Mr. Goode. That's where you get the proper drawings and you go to a professional and you say, hey, this is what my plan is. I'd really like to do this building and make my property more usable for me. But I've got this issue, I've got that issue. I got a creek back here. It's not probable that I can put a barn on a creek. So then that's where it's figured that, oh, well, you need to get a variance for this. So they're going to advise you, the people that do this professionally, that you're going to have to get with your zoning administrator. And you're going to need to go through this, and then you're going to fill out the paperwork and you're going to come to us and you're going to say, this is what my plan is. I would really like to build this barn. It's going to go over a swimming pool. But I've already been in touch with the county to see what my requirements are going to be for doing that, for building requirements, etc. And then when you come to us for just the initial, okay, we don't like it because it's, not behind the house, but there's a reason for that. It's because of the land. It's a situation that if this guy next door wanted to put a barn up, he could. He didn't have a creek running in his backyard. That's why we're here, because those kind of cases come to us because they're outside of the norm of the plot or the lot. And so then that's when we look at all the factors and we have a discussion here. Well, does this make sense or doesn't it? And then that's when it's approved. So then you get Karen's approval. And then that's when you go to the county and say, okay, the township's okay with me setting it here.
And that's when they'll consider
Now,
granting the building.
now you're gonna be dealing with the county and whatever all of their bells or whistles are gonna be. So, I guess, long story short, it's like if it would have just fallen through the proper progress and that, I mean, I think there's a probability that, you know, it would have flowed fairly easily, because you do have, you know, a situation there that is not normal for your lot. So that's where the variances get approved and things happen like that. And you already had the blessing of the owner saying you did to put the barn on there. So, you know, it's just, that's kind of how it would have went, and then you wouldn't have been facing whatever you're gonna be facing with the county. You know, you still could have, like Michael's saying, situations with them that we have no control over at this point, even if we were to say, yeah, we're okay with that, the part of it that we could have approved, you know, 6 months ago.
Right. And one of the logical questions that we've seen come up so many different times in requests, appeals for variances based upon location, were you able to get a permit? Have you talked to them
Right.
yet? And have you found out whether or not it's possible to build in that area? Is it a floodplain? Are there other issues that they would not issue you a building permit? Because if a building permit cannot be issued, then we wouldn't be granting a variance. It wouldn't be a point to it.
Correct. Just because there's a building there now doesn't mean it always has to be.
Yeah, or any structure.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the pool could have been there prior to township zoning,
Sure.
so that wouldn't have fallen under that anyhow.
The one question though that I would like to ask to have on record is, this aside, let's go back and say that we were to the point where Mr. Goode came to you or your mom and said, hey, this is what, I've got this idea that I want to build a barn here. Would you have said, okay, as long as you go through the
Absolutely.
proper channels to do that?
My dad built, he was a cement contractor. He built that pool. By the way, he used to sit on the board zoning here in Perry Township. So anyway, he knew the whole procedure and whatever. There is no way you could have gotten rid of the swimming pool. And the property, we tried to sell it twice and they couldn't get financing because of the condition of the property. And so that's why we went land contract, because it needed like $40,000 worth of work and it wasn't worth that, which is kind of shocking to me because I got the tax thing and they're taxing it, saying that that property is worth $90,000, which I know it's like, oh my gosh. But anyway, there's no way you can get rid of that swimming pool. And so he knew he needed to fill it in, whatever. You're going to have a big gravel parking lot. So yes, I think it's appropriate.
So you would have said yes. In answer to
Absolutely.
her question, you would have said yes.
You would have been in favor, you would have been okay with him putting that on technically what is the property you still own, or your
Yes.
mother still owns,
Yes.
that would be fine.
And I want to bring up, I did, once I was contacted, tried to go and say, okay, obviously it's here. I'm willing to pay for a surveyor. I'm willing to do whatever and just put it on to the amount that he still owes on it. So I made that offer.
How long ago was that?
February.
February.
Yeah, I think it's back in February.
Was that conversation, did that also include Clinton?
No.
Okay,
I contacted him later, but I talked to her first about the procedure. She sent me papers, showed me, then I contacted him
okay.
and said, we need to go through this procedure and so forth. I just met him publicly for the first time. I've only spoken to him on the
Well, that has to be challenging.
telephone.
Okay.
Right.
Well, she lives in Cincinnati.
No, that's what I
Yeah.
mean. That has to be a challenge, long distance
So
for you.
that's why I didn't know that the barn went on. You know, because I don't
Right, you're not here.
drive up and down the road.
You didn't see it. Okay. So there are, as I said, there are a number of things we can do. We can deny the appeal as far as the violation is concerned. But that doesn't mean that, and I know the first thing you brought up was the issue of precedence.
Mhm.
You know, what precedence does it set? So I'm just gonna make some suggestions here. It is possible for us to deny this appeal and therefore uphold the actual violation, so that we don't end up setting a precedent for the fact that this action is not a violation. But by the same token, we can include in our action and in our decision, additional mitigations if we want. Those could include, and I'm going to suggest that the potential fines, which based upon what I'm looking at, unless I've read it wrong, they could mount up to somewhere around 20, $100 a day, an initial $500. That could end up being $20,000, $30,000. That's something we can mitigate here and in our decision, and suggest that those fines not be imposed, that there'd be nothing, because we have that ability to do that. That's a mitigation.
Do we have the ability to pause them to make sure things go forward in a progressive manner and things don't get held?
Yeah, I think we've got a range of different things, and based upon my conversations with with our attorneys, that there's options for us that we can do. That's one of them I'm suggesting to you. There's other ones which could be that, in order to, one thing that could happen is this, and the board has actually done this in the past, not often, but they've actually said, no, not only will we not uphold the appeal, but we're going to order that the building be moved or taken down. That doesn't have to happen. I think that, Sherry, your point about what the process
Right.
is, there is a way we could also include in a motion, not only to deny the appeal, but to potentially void some potential penalties that I think are associated here. Number one, which I'm not saying, no, none of you have said this to me, but I'm just assuming that your sense is that's not something you probably want to do. That's why I'm bringing it up. Putting additional, because that goes on the owner. And it's my sense that might not be something you're interested in. I'm trying to tell you, yes, we can mitigate that and avoid that in a motion. We can also put in a motion to provide some time and some guidance. There's been plenty of guidance, but some within the motion itself, without ordering that this needs to come down, and suggest what that series and that process is.
Well, I think what I would like to see, and I know you alluded to this, is the potential for staying this meeting. And I would like to see that, to be able to kind of right some wrongs, right some things, and to maybe potentially go back to again, you've hired one professional, you need another one. You need someone to do professional
have a
drawings
surveyor.
for you, with the survey, with all of that done. That needs to be done. That's the first thing. And then the other thing I would like to see is what, whether you have to have the county to come out there and give you their laundry list,
Yeah,
so that instead of coming to us again and saying, okay, now we've got our professional drawings and this is what we would like to do, and this is why we need to do this, and this is why we need to have this building where it is. I personally, I drive by this all the time, and I mean, I'm just speaking personally, I don't see a problem with that personally, on the way that it looks. And yes, we have had ones where we've told them they've had to tear the building down. That was for other circumstances. But in this particular case, only my opinion, I don't see that being the thing to resolve this. I see that as being very wasteful and just in general. But I will say that going back and trying to write what we need to do, which is professional drawings, and get the county's list of whatever they've got going on, their blessing, so to speak, that, okay, they're fine with the way it was built and the way that this, and you paid their fines to them or whatever that's gonna be. Then come back to us with all of that and allow us to make a decision based on all of those facts. Now, the one thing too is, and I don't know, obviously, if you're just tacking this onto his thing, but I'm also not for avoiding all the fines. I would be opposed to saying that this is not going to bear some part of a fee. I mean, I'm sorry, that's something that I think is,
There's almost a year's worth of.
I'm
Time
not
and
saying to the
energy.
tune of the figures that we were given, that's a little, but there should be a fee on this, but and that's something that could be discussed. I don't.
So, Sherry, I want to do this with everybody. So what, hypothetically, if I were to entertain a motion to table this, to allow for time, and we have done this many, many times before. The things that I want to just be clear about what you'd like to see. Number one, if somebody were to come back on this, you want to see a good and clear survey, a professional survey, number one. Number two, you'd like to have some knowledge of resolution in terms of the county's input on whether or not they believe it's possible or what the permit situation is there, the floodplain and all that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Was there anything else?
Not with pertaining to, I mean, I think that would clarify, that would clear the bill. I'm definitely not on board with tearing the structure down unless the county wants to do that. I'm no building person, but I wouldn't say on our end of it that this is justified for doing
Tearing
that.
it down?
Right.
And you're also not in favor, if I understood you correctly, you're not in favor of reducing or removing all fees?
Right. I'm reducing,
Penalties,
but
I'm sorry.
right, reducing, but not
Removing.
completely removing.
Okay. If I were to entertain a motion to table this until certain things were accomplished, Mr. Warble, Brad, what things would you want to have happen between now and whatever time? And usually the time period that, to be honest with you, that we have given in the past has been 90 days. And that's our outside. Somebody can come back in 30 days with an answer, but 90 days is the outside. Usually if somebody can't come back within 90 days, and I'm just gonna be frank to everybody about this, if they can't come back and solve the problem, and we do grant a hearing, and I'm not saying we will, but we do grant a table this hearing to another time, we don't grant more than 90 days. So I really want to make that very clear, put that on that record. Brad.
I agree with everything that was said in the 90 days. I'd be interested to see what the county says. I'm kind of interested in that.
Were there any other pieces of information that you'd like to know and to have satisfied when they come back in, if they want to?
I'm assuming there was some sort of plans that were provided with the contractor. I'd like to see the actual.
The
plans.
building plan?
The building plan.
Okay, so building plans.
How it was built.
Okay. Mr. Stack, if we were to table this and come back, what would you like to know and see?
Well, I agree with all this so far. Yeah. But getting back to the contractor that built it, what I would like to know is how feasible would it be to move it if it's not
Okay.
anchored, with posts in the ground and so forth, if that could maybe somehow be moved to,
Feasibility on moving, right?
yeah.
Okay. And so the recommendation would be that come from a professional builder, is that right? So that's what you'd like to hear. Okay.
And again, I don't know what your hopes would be on something like that, if you really want that building there. You know, that's something, you know.
Can I make a comment?
Go right ahead.
Having lived there for many years and everything, and the traffic that goes running down Diamond Mill and so
Right.
forth, and the number of times that people have left the road and hit things. I think it might get hit, but I think it's in a good spot to protect the house.
Oh, okay. It's an interesting point.
Yeah,
It's a very good one.
yeah.
Well, and again, then your topography of that ground is going to dictate whether.
It's gonna
it-
dictate a lot.
And that's where I was getting at when we would say that it's a situation that is, I think on our, how do they report it? Special condition involving the property that causes us to be able
To grant a variance.
to grant the variance.
Because
and
if we
that's
can't
like-
come up with those, we're not supposed to be granting a variance.
Yeah, so like what you know.
And that's
because
one of
there's
them.
a creek that runs behind or something like that, well, we can't set the barn on the creek, we don't have any other location. Or the other thing too, and we touched on this earlier, when you get a professional survey done, they're gonna show us right where the well, I don't know, do you have
I
well
know what a
water or
professional
whatever?
Survey looks like, and it's not that.
Yeah,
I will be
Right.
sure. and I
the
will
well and
check with them,
septic and
but
that.
It has to be a professional.
Mhm.
survey.
Yeah, and on that survey, we would want to see a floodplain. We want to see the,
With the leash lines.
all of that,
Mhm.
all of that. And a good surveyor knows if there's, if it's coming in here, we're gonna want to see it all.
Right.
Or we're gonna table it for 30 days, give it back to her and say, no, we're not making a decision until we get something that we can.
Yeah, and they'll mark, they know, they'll do that, that's their job, they put the well. and
Yeah, they
septic.
do.
Totally.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So is there anything else that you would want to see or want to know about?
No, I'm good with that.
Okay, okay. Mr. Brown?
I think you've touched every base. I can't add, there's nothing more I can think of that.
Okay. So one thing that I can think of, and this has to do, this will probably end up coming from the county, but one of the things that I'd like to see is a clarification about the fill, the appropriate fill that was
Correct.
used, and whether or not that is a safety, because that's a safety factor, long-term. And I don't remember the builder, somebody at Anchor, something or
All
whatever.
steel.
Allstate, whoever it was, wherever you have to find that information about what was used, the county needs to, for me, when that comes back, I want to hear that that's an appropriate fill.
Right.
Because if the county comes back and says that is not an appropriate fill, that's a problem.
Well, who built it? Was it the people who built the building or did you have? it built?
I can't tell you that. That's,
I don't know whether it sits on the front or it's sitting on the actual fill of the swimming pool. I haven't walked over there and looked at it. But if it was in the front, oh my gosh, that was 40 years ago and it hasn't settled, I wouldn't be concerned and I think it'll pass. If it's on the swimming pool, I don't know what he did, so
Mr.
that's when it's a question.
is that a question you can answer? Do you know what the fill is?
The building or the attached garage sits on the old slab primarily, except for the western wall, which is on concrete that we put down on top of compacted dirt.
Oh, so you have a concrete floor in the building itself?
So it's compacted dirt?
Yes.
Okay.
Did the,
So one of the things that I'm going to want to know if we table this is in fact that whatever, whether it was compacted dirt, whether it was dead squirrels, I really don't care, that the county says that's okay.
Right.
And if the county says that's okay, compacted dead squirrels is good, then I'm good. But I want to know what it is and know that they say that it's safe.
so there's a portion of the swimming pool that's still accessible, that's filled in. If only a portion of the building is on the swimming pool.
The pool was an Olympic diving pool that was a monster.
Okay, so they would be able to test the compaction.
That part was not compacted.
Was
Okay,
there a wall, like a footer put in to hold the separation in the pool itself, or how was that divided?
yeah, so this is the pool and your building's sitting here.
The front half of the pool, the eastern half, was compacted dirt with concrete rubble interspersed into it, compacted down, and then the concrete was poured on top of it.
Right.
Yeah, 8-inch concrete slab, fiber, 4,000 PSI.
Like, what I'm trying to understand is there's still a portion of the swimming pool that's accessible, the fill is accessible. Is that the same fill that you guys used underneath the slab?
It's still a footer.
Well, we may not have the
Yeah.
answer to that. What I am going to suggest is that that's going to be on the list of those things which you want to be able to come and answer. And all of those questions around the fill for the entire sheet. So are there any other thoughts that the board has at this time? All right, so you're gonna have to give me a minute to do this. And I'm gonna have to count on the recording because I haven't written anything up for you, but I'm gonna work on this here. So I'm gonna go ahead and suggest that, what time is it?
8:05.
8:05. We're gonna take a 10-minute recess without objection. If there's no objection, we'll be taking a 10-minute recess. Give me a half a minute to make some notes. And then we'll come back with, I'll entertain a motion, and if it suits the board, we'll go from there. 10 minutes.
She wants to go home. And it's the safest place for her, but hard to get her to. Now, which house are you in?
I need a quiet office to write.
Go to my office. You can go into my office.
Good, take me there.
I'm leaving this recorded because I think that's how Jason did it. The last
That's
time.
fine,
Just gonna
that's
leave it.
fine. Just let me get
And
to where I can get
stepping over this door this time.
so that I can scribble some notes and make even a half an ounce of sense on this thing. Like you want to do it. You want to?
Well, how's it going?
You're
Very
good.
good. Very good.
That's
I
good.
have
That's a
never
good.
yet had the same malady.
Yeah.
Too much noise over the years.
Yeah, too many songs. Yeah, I had my first major, well, it's a major surgery. I had gallbladder.
Well, I got you beat, but it's no fun.
Yeah,
Proud recipient of prostate cancer. I went through that. Prostate.
yeah.
I've had a couple hernias.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
One of the
having
major
said that, that's funny.
things. Yeah.
I had some eye surgery, no biggie, cataract,
Okay.
some repair for glaucoma. but
Yeah,
I'm not a lover of surgery.
no, I'm not either. I don't like to take pills either.
So you winding down, you still going full?
Still going full time. I got, thinking about, 70. I'll be 68 this year, so
Yeah, I got
I still enjoy working,
Oh, I see.
I mean, I'll always do something. I'm not gonna say, might just be part-time or volunteer or whatever.
I retired from the second job 2 years ago, but
Was that your landscaping business?
pardon me.
Was that your landscaping?
Very well
business?
thought.
That's hard.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it is. And I
Yeah,
got to
it's
the
just,
point where I didn't.
You know, it's just
move
unfortunate the
residential
way it all.
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, and that was not too bad.
Yeah,
The days of tossing mulch and all
Yeah.
that was,
yeah,
I didn't like it. So,
that's rough.
but I still got plenty to do at home. Now I'm playing catch up for those 15 years of neglect.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was a lot of that. I got mulch to deal with. Yeah.
We're getting ready to refinance. And we both kind of said, okay, how much longer are we gonna live here?
Yeah.
What you thinking on moving?
We'll probably move back into town.
I mean, everybody's going on Maple Street. Gene,
Yeah.
the McGee's are gone, and Richard, his wife, McBride are gone.
Oh, wow.
He's going blind.
Oh, gee.
Yeah, back in the generation, I guess they built a house like in Butler Township off of like Branford at Louis where his
Okay.
I think like the Manzans, and the Hulls, and I think theirs are the only.
Yeah, yeah. And then,
Mike and Deanna moved back to them.
yeah. Yeah,
Sulphur
You know, I
Springs.
got the equipment.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
you know, there's gonna come a point in time when it's not fun.
Yeah.
It's like my dad, he's 80, he's still pushing on it.
That's everybody.
Yeah, and he pushed me around the tree, and I'm like, we have like, he's mowing 3, I'm mowing 3, and then my aunt lives next door, I'm like, "Yeah, why don't we just buy one machine?
Iced tea.
One big machine.
Lee's iced tea.
We'll put a brush on the back of it, we'll make it look pretty,
Yeah.
you know, because it, and all he does is mow grass all year round, all those cars, because he's too busy mowing grass.
Wow.
Yeah. You're 80 years old. How many, do you really want to spend 100 hours on the mower?
My grandma was the same way.
It's great.
My mom used to ask me, said, you pick the hottest part of the day.
Yeah.
With,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a self-propelled, but it's still.
Yeah.
Well, we, not only do we mow our yards, but we mow like with Ballsball lives behind us. We mow all of Ballsball's field access too. So like 6 feet behind all of our fences, all on my 3 acres, my dad's 3 acres, my aunt's 3 acres, all the way down the back.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and it's all, yeah. Every week he wants me to
Yeah,
mow
I
it.
see
It's like,
that.
I don't work for you.
Yeah.
Just to kind of see where we were and what.
You know, going back to way back when I built the place.
And then this.
Why in the world, I asked myself, anybody build a house
I
in the
didn't do
woods?
it from her.
You know, that's
But
very
I have to
stupid.
communicate with
her.
That's just stupid. And then plant 3/4 of an acre of grass so that,
Yeah.
you know, every fall you gotta deal with leaves and all that stuff.
I love living out there on Sulphur Springs. And the first year I moved there, oh my God, that was a 94 maybe. It snowed so much that year in January, right after Christmas, that, I mean, it was like 6 feet deep all the way across the street. I mean, there was no use in going out and shoveling it, because you were, it's like just throw it in the air, you know? And here comes the donkey down the road with a big old gleaner with a big snow blower, and he just cut all the way down the road. It's like, cool. Yeah, it was really cool.
I always have.
So I love living out there. We had this great big bay window to the west, and I could.
No, I did not. Yeah,
Mark
take
the,
it
you know, the
today.
sun
I
going
took
up,
it.
teach the kids, you know, the
Yeah.
equinox and all that stuff.
Yeah,
It's gotta be close to 8 o'clock.
that's neat.
The county did smart
wow.
stuff. We had, you know, bunch of branches and sticks and junk down.
Hey Karen,
Yeah.
And,
can you check your phone?
here they
Yeah, I
came.
checked it.
There's no plow.
You want me to pause it?
Man, that's smart.
Yeah, please.
Stuff was cleared
Uh,
off the roads.
It's under more.
More? Okay.
You wanna call my phone?
All right, well, I'm sorry, that was a little longer than 10 minutes, but,
We're gonna fine you for that?
and it won't be the first or last, will it?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, you've held me to account many, many years. That's what I count on.
I know.
All right.
Someone's got to take David's place.
And that's what I did, remember?
So true. It's not the other day.
Not the other
Sorry,
day.
you know what, yeah, you know exactly. He would sit right here and kick my skinny, never mind, we won't get into that. I gotta keep this clean. Okay. So I'm gonna, based upon what I've heard, unless there's any additional information from the board members, I'm gonna entertain a motion in this particular appeal. Sure, I don't get myself too confused here. Okay. So, and I assume you'll take this, you'll take it from the recording? Okay. So I'll entertain the following motion in case number BZA 2021004. That this board will table this appeal for a period not to exceed 90 days. At which time the Board of Zoning Appeal reconvenes to hear the continuance of this case. The board would like to have the following information. One, an appropriate professional survey that takes into account all of the known factors affecting this case. 2, a report from the Montgomery County Building Regulation Division on all factors affecting this case, including a statement on the appropriateness of the fill used in the construction to date. 3, a set of building plans from the builder. 4, a statement from the builder on the feasibility of moving the structure. And 5, a written statement from the owner or the owner's representative and the tenant involved in this case on their willingness to file all needed and appropriate additional forms and requests required by the BZA and the County Building Division. Are there any questions on what I've read?
No.
Is there any additions that you want to suggest? All right, I'm not going to repeat it unless you need me to.
Just the
Okay.
last one.
I'm sorry?
I didn't understand the last one.
At point number 5 was a written statement from the owner. These are things that the board would like to have when we reconvene, a written statement from the owner and the current tenant on their willingness to file all needed and appropriate additional forms and requests required by the BZA, meaning this Board of Zoning Appeal, and the County Building Division. Because inherently, if part of the mitigation of this is potentially, we're discussing is to allow for something to happen, and that would require a number of other filings. All right, that I'll entertain that motion. Is there a board member who would like to make that motion?
I'll make it.
There's been a motion by Sherry Simon to the effect of what's read. Is there a second to that motion? There's a second by Mr. Brown. And I will call the roll on this for this vote. Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Simon,
Yeah.
Mr. Stack,
Yes.
Mr. Warble,
Yes.
and the chair abstains. The motion is carried. So what we want to be clear on is that we're giving 90 days to follow those. You can get it written. If you need it in writing, Karen can provide you a written of this. We are going to be, I'm just going to be frank with you and very open. We are going to always be very careful about what precedents we set in terms of what we are going to have. Do not be surprised if when we come back together 90 days from now, we deny this appeal in terms of appealing the violation, but allow for mitigation on other factors, which means that it doesn't mean you can't still file if you hear the board says for the permits. This appeal is about the violation. I do want to be clear about that. That's all this is about tonight. I don't see anything in front of me asking for a variance on anything. I mean, that's not happening. And we wouldn't have the materials here anyhow. We need the survey. We need everything. That's what I've tried to outline for you. Please understand,
90 days October.
No, it'd be November.
November. Which means that we are willing, and Karen will tell you when she chases all of us down and gets us here. That means we'll meet in September if you're ready in 30 days. If you're ready in less than that, she'll call us and say it needs to be October. And if she not, she'll say November. But I'll tell you, if you go to Christmas, we ain't meeting on it. No. Because when we do come back together, we will just simply deny it and, you know.
It
And the
shouldn't really
consequences
take that
be-
long.
No,
would
it
think,
shouldn't,
to get it.
but I just want to be clear.
Yeah, it shouldn't really take that long.
Is there, did anybody have anything else, any questions on this?
No.
If that's passed, okay, so I'd like to move to the next portion of the meeting, and that is to look at the minutes from the July 22nd meeting.
Michael, before you do that, do you have a card that I can have?
Oh,
so
yeah,
that
go
I
right
can
ahead.
send communication?
Sorry about that. You go right ahead. Get numbers.
They can leave. They don't need to walk, sit through this. do they?
No, they really don't. And I don't need, you got the recording on, Karen?
Yes.
Then you all go about your business. We're gonna be fine. Does anybody, have you all had a chance to read these?
Yes.
Okay. Did you find many or any?
Yes.
You found a few?
Yeah.
I found a couple.
Yep.
How about you?
I wouldn't hear.
Oh, that's
Vote on it
good.
Anyway.
That's
Okay,
rich.
But you voted.
Yeah, yeah,
You
look at.
voted.
And I'm sorry for the,
Oh, all right. So, okay. Good night. That was very good.
I know.
I wasn't sure. I'm gonna remember that, okay? It's gonna come back and bite you. All right, corrections?
Simon says aye after not being here.
Yes, I want you
Oh,
to
where
take a
was
look
that?
at that. That's gonna be
she
very,
was here in spirit, come
supposed to
on.
be
she was
London.
here in spirit, so she voted, yeah, I'm not gonna buy that.
I think it should be
I'm
London.
with Mike on this one.
And under Michael's comments on the first page, I think withdrawal is one word without an L. And then down at the bottom, it's under Michael again, it says halfway through, it says, I don't see anything here is writing that they are aware of.
And it should be in writing,
Mhm.
here in writing. You see that?
I do.
Okay. You go right on, Mike.
I don't see anything until you get to page 3/4 of the way down under Mike Brown. It says, I agree with Brad and understanding everything. I understand the whole cost thing. I don't know if we have ever been a case. I think it should be if there has ever been a case.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's all my English can get through.
And I'm gonna.
You know that this is a test for you guys.
I know, yes, and we're working on our test now. So I want you to go on page 3 and Karen, and you'll see by the highlighter.
Okay.
Go to page 3 about that far down, and
Mhm.
you're gonna see, it says, under my name afterwards, is there anything else we should know? Question mark, and then it says, I said, we have 4 kids. I've only got the 3 boys. And Lord knows, he may be 46, but he's not 6. So
Okay.
that is probably somebody else speaking.
Okay. It was Sherry.
It was Sherry again. All right. So, and that's, but there were a couple of those. So what I'd like you to do is I would like you, as a part of our approving the minutes degree, go through and check names and make sure that we get, because I believe that was Mr.
Cameron.
Yeah, Mr. Cannon.
It was, yeah,
Right. But
okay.
I don't have the record in front of me. I just have the memory.
Yeah, okay.
But there, and that happened in a couple of other places.
Okay.
So just check each and every one of those. All right. Mr. Stack?
On page 2.
I need to collect all of your things with your
We'll
highlights.
give them back to you.
Okay.
It reads, I'm thinking that anyone who wants to spec in
Speak.
favor of this.
Oh, they
I
probably.
was thinking of David Stack.
Coming up.
Man, you were like on,
She just ready. She's ready with the excuses real quick now.
you've been listening to Willie too much.
What else you got, David?
Page 3. The intended use of this building, I think he meant intended. probably.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll just collect all of your little highlighted
We'll
pictures
just-
and I'll
we'll
fix it.
We'll just do that for you. And just, yeah, we need to work on, anything else?
Last page.
Last page.
I can't believe I went through and found stuff. I'm bad at this
Oh,
myself.
that's all right.
Oh, you're getting better.
But anyway, you said, see what we can do to bring thing up to date.
Probably things. Probably.
Got it.
Probably.
See, the problem is once I type the stuff,
Yeah.
it doesn't do me any good to go
No,
back
it
and work
doesn't.
because I know what it's supposed to say.
When you're done,
And I'm
you should just go to Sharon.
I am. From now on, Sherry, you gotta proof this.
What you said to look at.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
appreciate you
Brad?
guys doing that.
Oh, Brad doesn't have anything. You weren't with Sherry, were you? Not in the meeting. Okay.
Never did that kind of spelling.
You got your, you,
I
hey,
will.
Brad, you got the copies, didn't you?
Yeah,
I was gonna say, cause I dropped them.
oh, yeah, I got it.
Yeah, I got a copy.
Okay. So, those comments being made, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as corrected. Is there a motion to that effect? Mr. Brown, is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Warble seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion carries. Are there other announcements? Or
Next
questions?
Thursday night, the Board of Zoning Commission Board will be here at 7. We're going to have our first meeting since I've been here.
So the zoning
The
commission's meeting.
zoning commission's meeting next Thursday, and we're going to, basically, I'm going to share with them some of the issues and things that's come across my desk and see, what we need to do to update and amend some of the zoning so that, it complies more with today's stuff.
Okay.
And then the 26th, we have the BZA meeting for Mr. Beverly.
26th of
It's not this coming Thursday, but the next
2 weeks.
Thursday.
2 weeks.
And then-
Oh, they're
and-
ready.
Right, and then depending on, I don't have anything else in the works. So once
That's what I wanted to hear.
once they get back with me, then we'll get that set up and then I'll let everybody know.
We have another issue too, don't we, of the cemetery
Oh, are you talking about,
access.
oh, yeah,
The access on the.
yeah, he just brought me some stuff on that, so
Yeah.
okay, that's gonna have to be looked at too.
Okay.
Yeah,
If it can make it by the time of the meeting, fine, but if it can't, it's gonna have to wait till the next.
right. I mean, we've got so much crammed in, I don't know how we can do
This is
it.
what Beverly should go pretty quickly though.
Yeah.
I went out,
Should be.
we met out there and everything, so.
All right.
Well, we can't have any more until, like, if we're going to do the one about the entrance or whatever, I still have to go through, it's gotta go on the Brookville Star.
Oh, yeah.
And I
All
mean, there's a
that stuff.
whole
Yeah.
procedure that has to be
Just
done.
with Beverly.
So,
Just the one.
yes, so that one
Okay.
should go pretty quick.
Could you do me a favor? Does everybody here, we all use email?
Yeah.
Yeah. Shoot us out an email,
Okay,
like the
and
week
give you an
before.
update.
Yeah, just as a reminder update kind of thing. Doesn't
Okay.
hurt. Does that-
So let me give you my other email, because I don't ever look at
Did you
this
get the
one.
email? I
Yeah,
sent
look
you?
at take the one she looks at.
Yeah, I
Well,
never look at.
yeah.
Did you get the email I sent you last night?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
Thank
I
you.
just saw you. Yeah.
Thank you. I meant to get a hold of you today, but
That's
then I
okay.
figured. Yeah.
You didn't
Okay.
bounce, so.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay,
anything else? No, we're good? Okay, if that being the case, then nobody else got any questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Is motion to that effect, Mr. Steck? Is there a second?
No, sir.
Without objection, so ordered.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's fine. I'll probably. No, look here, that's yours.